In this video, we'll be looking at two passenger cars I bought to replace this aging fleet of New York Central passenger cars, as well as why I'm replacing them. But first, here's something interesting that happened to me recently. This guy did not have enough money to pay for the bus, so he tried to pay for it with $2 worth of snacks. Sadly, none of these snacks were snacks that I normally eat. Anyway, the reason why I'm replacing these passenger cars is because of their couplers. These very cheaply made passenger cars that I bought for like $14 at the time have couplers that are mounted to their trucks in a very specific way that makes maintenance very difficult. The couplers are mounted to the trucks using these metal plates that are mounted to the bottom. These plates are next to impossible to remove without bending them out of shape, and once you remove them, you need to buy a new one to mount the coupler in place. Unfortunately, it's really hard to purchase these coupler plates because it's really hard to find anyone who still makes them, and even when I found someone who sells them, I found that installing new coupler plates is pretty much pointless on these types of passenger cars. I found that these coupler plates were often weaker than the ones the passenger car came with, and even once you get them installed, sometimes they'll just drop the coupler in between the rails, causing the train to separate at random intervals. Not only that, but because of how lowly the couplers are mounted to the trucks, the air hose would often get snagged on the ties and on switches. I've always been having issues with the couplers on these passenger cars ever since I bought them, even before trying to replace the couplers, so it became time to replace them. The first coach I purchased was a New Jersey Transit Comet coach by Rapido Trains. Now, I've actually always wanted a New Jersey Transit passenger car since I was a kid, and for a short while I did have some. I bought these fictional lightweight HO scale cheaply made New Jersey Transit cars, only back then they only cost $10. Like, my goodness, the inflation has not been kind to the model train industry, has it? I honestly don't think that these are worth $40 if I'm being honest with you, because these cars were so unrealistically lightweight that they would derail a lot. In fact, just like how the Amtrak SD P40F kept causing the trains it was attached to derail in real life, with these passenger cars, because of how lightweight they were, whenever the locomotive went from a straight section of track to a curved section of track, or from a curved section to a straight section, the coupler would just pull the front bogie off the track because the coupler was permanently attached to the bogie, and it had absolutely zero play in it. So as soon as the locomotive changed direction, it would just force the front train car to derail. These cars also did not have a detailed interior, and they didn't have interior lighting, so I don't know where you're getting $34 from, to be honest. I actually remember as a kid putting large amounts of batteries inside these passenger cars in a last-ditch attempt to make them heavier so that they wouldn't derail as easily, but that must have put a huge wear and tear on its plastic wheels, because I remember at some point the wheels were so worn that they couldn't even roll down the track without derailing, even when they weren't coupled to anything. I actually remember literally throwing these cars in the trash because it was too much of a headache to operate them. I actually remember replacing these with lightweight, cheaply made $10 6-axle passenger cars that were blue with black roofs, but I can't remember the name of the railroad that was on them because I didn't really keep track of that stuff when I was a kid, unfortunately. The only thing I remember about them is that they came in kit form, and while putting them together, I placed size C batteries over their axles and staples over their midsection because I knew that them being lightweight was going to cause issues down the line. These cars were actually better though because they had metal wheels and knuckle couplers. They actually ran pretty well, but I can't remember what I did with them. All I remember is the reason why I bought them was specifically to replace those New Jersey Transit cars, and they actually did work a little bit. Those cars were eventually replaced with the Amfleet cars, but not the ones in the background of this photo. Those Amfleet cars, unfortunately, were treated too roughly, and due to several derailments, they ended up with broken couplers and bogies. And even though I probably could have fixed them, for some reason I didn't. Which turned out to be a really bad idea, because while 4 of them cost $140 back then, now, one of them cost $99, so I ended up spending a lot more money in the long run. I don't remember exactly when I bought these New York Central cars, but I think I bought them sometime after purchasing the blue cars and sometime prior to purchasing the Amfleet cars, the original ones. I actually remember operating them with the Amfleet cars, so I must have had both of them at the same time. Oh yeah, that blue, white, and yellow passenger car in the background next to that Union Pacific boxcar. That car, I think I purchased it around the same time I had the Amfleet cars. That cab car came in a set of 3 cars. Unfortunately, they were too long to operate on the train set style curves and kept derailing. So I quickly had to take them out of service, almost as soon as I started running them. I remember taking the couplers off of the 2 passenger cars to use as spare parts and then throwing them away, but I kept the cab car. Inflation has not been kind to that set. It was $80 when I purchased it, but now it's $300, actually closer to $400. On the same day I purchased this passenger car, I also purchased an Amtrak P42. This locomotive was purchased to replace one that, for some reason, just stopped working. This is the Missouri Pacific dining car. This car was purchased because I could only find one New Jersey Transit coach available on eBay. Turns out they're really rare because they're sought after, and the website that sells them is often sold out of them. Here's some footage of these new cars and the P42 operating on a test run. Until I can figure out what to do with these cars, one of which has a broken coupler, they have been parked in a siding.